It's the Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling Podcast with your host, Josh. And with me, as always, he's styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, podcast host. Woo! Josh, how are you today?
Woo! The Nature Boy! Woo! Woo! Hey, man, thank you so much for the intro. I appreciate that. I'm really great. So, hey, let's get to it. Let's get right to it. We're talking about match types. In fact, another suggestion we got from the hotbox, josh@talkwrestling@gmail.com, was what match types would you guys bring back? Josh, what do you got for us?
You know, does anybody remember? I'm going to start off with a rough one here, okay? Keep your Rotten Tomatoes in your basket. Don't attack me just yet, okay? Junkyard Invitational, okay? WCW's Junkyard Invitational. As I know you hear the words, and it's a horrifying mess of injuries and nothingness, and literally Bobby the Brain Heenan, one of the greatest commentators ever, basically just throwing up his hands and saying, how about we just let things go and we don't try and commentate it. It's a mess. But if you did it right, if you did it with maybe just a few people, and you did it safer, and you did it more carefully, and maybe, I talked about this before, the cinematic match, I think you'd have something really cool. Like, don't bother with a helicopter, trying to, get the action or any of that nonsense. Just treat it like a regular hardcore match in a junkyard with the proper precautions, and I think you'd really have something, a really fun, unique hardcore match.
Yeah, the original one was 15 wrestlers, and I think
Something
Fit
like that.
Finley ended up winning that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like 15 different wrestlers, and I think the problem is they're trying to do like 7 different main event spots at the same time. I think that if they sort of focused on 7 or 8 big ones and they split that up throughout, and that way they focus on 2 wrestlers at a time, while the other ones are just kind of doing some soft working down below. They have 2 wrestlers setting it up, boom, they go through something, then they focus on another 2 wrestlers. But yeah, I felt like that's what Bobby the Brain Heenan was getting at. It was like, hey, I can't commentate for 15 different things going on. I only have one voice.
There was nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing there. Yeah. The right planning, I think you'd have something good.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm a sucker for spectacle, and so I'm going to go WCW on this one. What I want to see again would be the Doomsday match. The 4 steel cages.
Yeah.
One on top of another. Basically, it was like Mega Powers, and it was basically they were taking on the 4 Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom.
Yes.
And I think there was, Lex Luger was part of it as well, too. Lex Luger sort of, I think, straddling. I don't know if he's actually, I don't think he's part of the 4 Horsemen at that point, no. So I think he was separate. But yeah, so they kind of had to go through each, it was like a level.
Was that the one with Tony Lister as Z Gangster? Or was that a different match?
He actually might have been, yes. And I think him and
Zeus.
Warlord. Yeah, I think him and Warlord.
Okay.
That's right.
So he was in that too. Okay.
Him and Warlord were in that match too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was a crazy match.
That was, oh my gosh, it was nuts. I just remember the end of it, Hulk Hogan's at the very bottom of the cage with a frying pan. But it was like one of those camping frying pans you have, like something you'd use as like a 6-year-old to make some like bacon with dad and mom or something on a camping trip. And I'm like, I'm supposed to believe this, but whatever. Like it was a cool concept. You start off in you're 4 cages high, 4 stories up essentially, and you're working your way through each level. You have weapons to use, but you're fighting basically like the 4 Horsemen at one level, and then the Dungeon Doom at the next level. So anyway, I think that'd be pretty cool. Now the problem with that is it's such a spectacle. It involves like the entire roster. So really, how that would work nowadays, you basically have to have like the Shield taking on like all these different groups to get to the bottom. That's maybe the best way it could work, but of course we're not gonna. We're seeing the final. This is the final chapter. No more.
Yeah.
We swear to you. There might be one more, but we swear to you otherwise, this is the final chapter of the Shield. Thrice in a lifetime. But this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. But yeah, no, so we'll see the Shield. They're going to do their thing in Moline at the house show. And that'll be, as far as we know, that's the final time. That's the final chapter of the Shield in WWE. Of course, here's the thing.
For now.
Well, nothing's ever over.
Nope.
In WWE, they always come back. Bret Hart came back. Stone Cold came back.
Palpatine came back.
Right. CM Punk's going to come back at some point. That'll happen. Everyone comes back. Anyway, Doomsday match. That's what I want to see. Josh, what else you got for us?
Yeah, I picked something similar. WCW War Games, the triple cage match, also known as the Tower of Doom, with the 3 progressively smaller cages on top of each other.
Okay.
Just something like that.
Yeah.
For pretty much the same arguments that you made of just the possibilities there. Maybe I would tweak it, and maybe the upper cages aren't quite so small, and I would make sure that David Arquette is nowhere near any of that.
Well, hey, in his defense, from what I understand, he did not want to win the world title. Yeah. He did not want to win the world title because he actually thought it would degrade the title. So it's kind of forced on him. But
I do not blame him for that.
Yeah.
And he donated his winnings to charity, I believe, too. So stand-up guy.
Cool.
Stand
Well,
of
he's
guy.
actually he's actually in the independent wrestling circuit right now. He's actually wrestled a few matches.
Really?
Again, he had a hardcore match, and I forget against who. He had a hardcore match about a month or so ago. He was busted wide open, but yeah, he's a huge pro wrestling fan, and he's out to like sort of change his name and sort of say, hey, I've always respected wrestling. What happened, that wasn't me. It was part of a contract.
Right.
I'm so sorry. And so I think he's going out of his way to show that he's the real deal, and that's pretty cool, I think.
That's commendable.
Yeah.
It's always nice when you see a celebrity involved in wrestling that actually likes wrestling instead of somebody who's like, I'm here at Wrestling Mania. You know, like
another match I want to see would be I would want to see this match plus some more is the World War III match.
oh
The
yeah.
60 person battle royal match.
Mhm.
You make it intergender.
Yeah.
All right, you bring everyone on. I say why not just top it off at 100 superstars. 100
Everybody.
superstars, and you could save it for something like, if they had a unified world title of some sort, just a world championship, just put everyone in there and just have this giant 60 person battle royal. Now, the thing about it is the Royal Rumble's cool because you get those entrances. Everyone likes the entrances. We all watch wrestling for different reasons. Some watch it for the actual wrestling, some watch it just for the promos, some watch it just for the actual entrances, some watch it for all three of them. Some watch it for whatever reasons I'm not mentioning. But in any case, I think with the World War III, thing is with the World War III, it's a battle royal, so it's just this constant entrance. They just let everyone come out at the same time. They have an announcer. It sort of says Alex Wright comes out, Sting comes out, Lex Luger comes out, just sort of giving examples from the old
Sure.
WCW days. But yeah, I think to see 100 person battle royal World War III style, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
What stinks though is that it does require. So I've seen battle royals where you can do 40, 40 superstars. So if you could somehow get 50, get 50 into one ring at a time.
Oh.
That way you could get it down to 2 rings. Because the thing about it is
Yeah.
it's tough camera work. It's tough camera work to do the World War III because you have these 3 rings and you're really only using one of them. Well, at a time. And then you sort of saw the same issue with the Fall Brawl, where WCW they couldn't really mask the 2 rings. Now, actually, to NXT's credit, I think they do a pretty good job of masking in terms of their takeover when they do the Fall Brawl War Games.
Yeah.
Or the War Games, I should say. When they do the War Games, they do a pretty good job camera work wise matching it where you don't really see that other side of the ring. It's sort of darkened and it's not there. So I think they could do
There's
the 2
ways.
rings. Right. I think they could do the 2 rings with the camera work, but with 3 rings, it's tough. You're always going to see sort of this third or second ring in the background. But yeah.
Yeah, it's just price of doing business, I guess.
That's right. That's right. So what else? What else do you think? Any other matches?
There's one more. Okay, this one's a little bit out of left field here.
All right.
So, folks, if it's possible, try and open up a new tab in YouTube and type in Luna Wrestling 1972. Now, make sure you type in 1972, otherwise you're going to get a lot of Luna Vachon matches, which is great in its own right, but we're looking for Luna Wrestling 1972. And what you're going to find is an Associated Press video, black and white footage, with a bunch of French guys. But there's guys standing outside of the ring on little platforms, and when they stomp, this platform launches them up a la Rey Mysterio's entrance sometimes when he does the jump up, the platform pops up.
Yeah.
It's like that, and they're all 4 of them around the ring on these spring-loaded pedestals, launching them into the air, like literally like 7 or 8 feet into the air, these skinny French guys flying around. So imagine like Lucha House Party, Rey Mysterio,
Oh, yeah.
a bunch of luchas using these pedestals, and seriously, go watch that clip because I'm underselling it. It looks amazing. Like if every now and then, like wrestlers evoke that superhero vibe, this would really nail it. I'm imagining 2 guys, they're on their platforms, they launch into the air, they're trying to Superman punch each other simultaneously, like all kinds of stuff like that. Just imagine the possibilities, guys.
That would be awesome. They could make it like a 205 pay-per-view, like Spring.
Yeah.
They just call it Spring,
Yeah, these little like these light guys, these high flyers are going to be really high flying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it could definitely be a specialty match and say like, hey, you guys are high flyers. What if you went even higher?
Right.
And this, the GM then just throws it out there, and they have a Spring. I actually saw that video. We're going to pop that on the Insta later. So check it out on Instagram. And it is a cool match, and I think you can watch it with sound effects and without. I recommend without personally. But yeah, no. In terms of I guess another match I would like to see again. Well, personally, I just want to see in general would be intergender matches. I think it's time that we especially have an opportunity here with Becky Lynch. I want her just to challenge both Kofi Kingston and Seth Rollins and say, listen, triple threat match, winner takes all. Let's unify this, and we have an undisputed, unified, universal WWE champion.
Wow.
And I think that what you do is you have Royal Rumbles that are intergender. You have a King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring tournament as a tournament, and whoever wins as either the king or queen of WWE.
Oh, there you go.
I think that we should start seeing that, and I think this is where we need to go next. We're we're talking about equality with men and women. This is definitely a next step forward. We're seeing that main events are now shared by both men and women. Why not take it to the next level? And this is something that the independent circuit has been doing for forever. I'm going to see Freelance Wrestling tonight here in Chicago at Logan Square Auditorium. Kylie Ray is their world champion. You've seen it in Shikara when they've had a female world champion. You're seeing it all over too, and I think it's time to maybe merge these together.
Yeah.
And you see it like before. People are like, oh, there's no way Rey Mysterio could beat someone like Kevin Nash or Big Show, but they made it work.
No.
Well, the same situation is you could have women outsmart men and beat them in matches. If they can't beat them physically, maybe they're quicker or smarter. That's what you can bring to the table.
Just speed and cunning versus brute force. Yeah, for sure.
Or in some cases, you could have brute force, right? As we saw in the Royal Rumble with Nia Jax. Although it was kind of a 3-on-1 situation. She held her own as long as she could, but I think they were actually introducing maybe as a peek into what we could see in the future.
Yeah, we've seen glimpses of that. We saw Becky with James Ellsworth she was slapping him around.
Yeah,
you see little glimpses of it. Yeah.
So I think I'd like to see that, and I think that would definitely bring. I think that would not only help the sport, but I think it would also diversify it. Yeah, that's really what I want to see. I think that's kind of the next evolution for wrestling is what we're going to see.
Well, there's just one thing. Rumor has it that Mattel, who of course makes the WWE wrestling figures, a very lucrative contract for them, for both parties involved. The rumor is that the head of Mattel personally asked them to not do any man-on-woman violence. Okay. This is what the rumor is. So that's what some people say is the reason we don't see it.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Who knows?
We're talking about a worldwide billion-dollar company, too, and so they can't take as many risks as the independent wrestling circuit. But, hey, it's certainly something that, again, you have to talk about wrestling. We talk about wrestling from the standpoint of a fan, and it's easy for us even here to be on the show and say this should happen this way. This should happen this way. There's so many things we don't know. For example, there's wrestlers that don't work well together, so there's not a reason to put them together in a match. So we might be as fans thinking, hey, these two guys or gals got to have that dream match.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's never going to happen because they just don't work well together. They don't like each other. There's a million things that schedules can also play into that, or in this case, corporate sponsorships, and those are important, right? It's good for both ends of the business. So while I definitely can sort of see it, I still would like to see that be the evolution and see those types of matches happening down the road.
We can hope, because I mean, there's ways to do it where it's tasteful and it's not, tacky or whatever the concern is. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing about it is if you stay away from fists, like open fists, and maybe do more clotheslines or like power bombs and whatnot, or like power bombs reversed into hurricanranas and so on and so forth.
More technical aspects.
Right, exactly. And you almost kind of look at like a Rey Mysterio versus Big Show match. Rey Mysterio would have to do sort of just these things out of nowhere. Let's say that you didn't want to have a physical one-on-one match, man versus woman. You could sell it like that. Again, getting back to focusing more on the speed, or the woman outsmarts the man, and so on and so forth.
Do you remember that there was a Kenny Omega match? Kenny Omega versus some 12-year-old girl.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And that, I mean, you could say that match is maybe a little jokey, but it's a demonstration of her using her speed and just centrifugal force and things like that to try and hold her own.
Well, and it's not a new concept. Like I think back to probably one of the greatest matches I've ever seen on Monday Night Raw was Sean Waltman 1-2-3 Kid versus Bret Hart. Forget what year it was, but it was voted match of the year, and it was 1-2-3 Kid versus Bret the Hitman Hart. And I think everyone thought Bret the Hitman Hart was going to come in and waltz it. They sold it so well, you thought 1-2-3 Kid was going to go over.
Yeah,
it was like, oh my gosh, and you really saw how great of a match it was. Yeah, top to bottom. But again, this is a perfect example where it's like you got speed and youth versus more wiser and technical wrestler, and when you have those two strengths, it puts on a great show. So that's what they could focus on, the intergender. Maybe drop, like I said, the open fist and focus on those attributes.
No doubt about it. I agree completely. Let's see what happens. Women equality, and show if Becky Lynch is the man. I really liked your idea of having that triple threat.
Yeah. Winner take all. Why not?
Okay, Vince, get on it.
All right. So yeah, it was a great question. Thanks again. Send all your questions, ideas, comments. JoshTalkWrestling@gmail.com. As we have shown, we do listen and read to those emails, so we're all cool. We're on the same page. But Josh, quick question before we divert from that. What do you think, in your opinion, to be like one of the worst gimmick matches you've ever seen? This is a match you probably don't ever want to see again, or maybe it was so horrible they shouldn't try it again.
See, for me, when I grade a gimmick match, it's how it comes across on paper, how it's hyped up, right, versus the actual execution. Kennel from Hell match. Easily, I think that's the worst one in terms of hype versus reality. You literally had a bunch of dogs pooping around the ring. Al Snow, I think Al Snow slips in the poop at some point, and they're just like these lovable dogs who just want to say hello to everybody. It's just so did not work. But like in our heads, we're imagining a certain picture from movies. You know what I mean? Like the cage match scene,
Rottweilers.
the Rottweilers. You know, we're imagining like a pit of like 60 Rottweilers, unattended, just ravenous, ready to tear people apart. But when you get to the reality of it, was like, I think it was like 5 dogs with handlers at all times.
Yeah.
And it was the worst thing ever. And like the commentary team is just, they should win awards for trying to sell this at least at first. And then it just fell apart so quickly.
Oh man, the last time I saw a match sold that well was probably Rusev and Cena and their flag match. But yeah, the commentators had to put that over a lot though. Of course, actually Cena and Rusev, they did a lot of work in that match as well too, for what it was. But speaking of, in fact, one of my, I think the absolute, when people ask what my worst gimmick would be, and like if I just think personally, like what's probably one of the worst matches I've seen in my life, it would have to be the Viagra on a pole match.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just trying to picture like what was, it was Shane Douglas and Billy Kidman. What was the winner supposed to do once they got it?
That's the thing. What was the
I don't understand.
implication?
It didn't. Well, it was because Viagra was big at the time. This is late '90s, early millennium, and yeah, it was a Viagra on a pole match. And generally, when they have these pole matches, it's whoever gets to it first. So bat on a pole match, steel chair on a pole match. If you get to that first, you get to use the weapon on your opponent.
Sure.
Well, what are you going to use Viagra on your opponent? What does that even mean once you get it?
Joey Ryan would find a way.
Yeah, Joey Ryan would make it work. He would definitely do that. But yeah, anyway, that's the one that comes to mind. But
that's
yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Thanks again for your suggestions for that. Again, Josh at JoshTalkWrestling at gmail.com. Hit up the hot box. So let's talk about current news in wrestling. How about that Superstar Shakeup?
Yep, Superstar Shakeup. That's the thing. Well, I think I might have mentioned this a little bit in previous podcasts, but I don't see the point of having separate brands, a brand draft, a Superstar Shakeup. What happens every time I watch the Superstar Shakeup, I'll be watching and I'll say, oh, that person was on Raw apparently, and now they're on SmackDown, I guess. Or that person's on SmackDown and now they're on Raw. The only things that really surprise me is when someone's called up from NXT or comes over from 205. But the Raw to SmackDown jumps, I don't care. I watch, because, the thing is, like, I watch both shows. So to me, it's not the Raw roster or the SmackDown roster. It's just the WWE roster.
Yeah, I think the problem is that there's so much blending. Like in the past couple weeks of WrestleMania, I forgot who was on what show. It was like, whoa, there's so much going on. So I think, and again, I've said this before, I would personally just scrap the Superstar Shakeup, and instead, how it would work is you treat your titles. So if you're a title holder, you're essentially a free agent, and you can go in between all the shows in WWE. Once you lose the title, you then become part of that show. So that way you're organically restacking, shuffling, shaking up the roster throughout the year. I think that the Superstar Shakeup would be great if the wrestlers were on that brand for good. For like if they go to that brand, they're on that brand for good for like a year. Now there's obviously the big shows, like you want to see WrestleMania or Survivor Series, SummerSlam. There's some opportunities to have some like inter-brand matches there, but that's kind of part of the fun of it. That'd be sort of just a one-off deal. They could have the wrestlers, like if it's Raw versus SmackDown, have the Raw wrestlers only show up via satellite or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So that way you actually have the final meetup is at the pay-per-view itself.
I could see that. See, like that's the thing. One of my complaints about this brand separation is like you said, they don't separate it enough. And the other thing is they're never on equal footing. SmackDown is never going to be on equal footing with Raw. Raw is always the flagship show, the A show. They talk about it in storyline that SmackDown is the B show. So whenever it's like, oh, it's Raw versus SmackDown, it maybe Survivor Series, let's say, it's not that impactful because in some cases you say, well, half the people were on Raw before and now they're on SmackDown. This was just 2 weeks ago, let's say, and the other thing is usually Raw seems to come out on top.
Really? I don't know about that. I actually think they typically try to put SmackDown over in those Survivor Series styles matches, or like even like you see like maybe.
I think if we looked it up, I don't know.
Hey, we'll have that. We'll look that up for the next show. But like if you look at Royal Rumbles, I'd like to think that maybe more SmackDown and Survivor Series matches, more SmackDown. There's more SmackDown victories in Raw, just to sort of actually have the illusion of a balance. That
may be the case, but I guess the problem there is that's even worse if my perception is still that Raw comes out on top.
Well, it's because we know. I mean? It's because we know Raw is the flagship.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So it's like these aren't two equal brands fighting with each other.
Well, that could change. So with SmackDown going to Fox, there's suddenly I think there could be more opportunity for exposure here.
I mean, if they can make these separate brand thing mean something, then I can get behind it probably.
Yeah.
But right now it's just a pain in my ass because I'll watch. Well, they'll have. Well, I guess now all pay-per-views are co-brand. So they'll have like a big pay-per-view Survivor Series. You see the fallout for what happened on Raw, addressing the Raw bits of that pay-per-view, but then on Smack they react to the separate parts of the pay-per-view that they were involved with. And it's just like, I just want one reaction. Can I just get one reaction and everybody's covered? Like, I don't know. I don't like it being that separated.
Yeah.
It's just
So yeah, I mean, I'm going to stick with my original idea on that, but yeah, I think it's something to consider. Honestly, with the superstar shakeups, yeah, that's where I sort of had the idea with the free agency. It will organically restack the rosters throughout the year, but yeah, at the end of the day,
cool.
with the shuffle is fun for like a week or two. It's like, hey, I got some new toys, but then it kind of gets back into the bland creative. And I shouldn't say the creative is always bland with WWE, but I feel like it has been in recent memory.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But speaking of Sasha Banks, where is she coming? Where is she going? What's going on with her?
The boss is not happy at all, apparently.
That's right. Well, WrestleMania weekend, apparently her and, she went and, I guess, threatened to quit because the Iconics were going to go over and get the tag titles. Again, this all could be storyline too. This all could be kayfabe. Who knows?
That's always the thing. It's always
you never
smoke
know.
and mirrors and what's real and what's not.
Well, and she also, too, that's the thing with AEW, with All Elite Wrestling, is that they are actually, a lot of wrestlers are just basically threatening to quit. And you see, like, Revival, they threaten to quit, and suddenly they're the Raw Tag Team Champions the next week, and they've got a main, even though they lost at WrestleMania, they had a match at WrestleMania
But
on
still,
the main card.
Yeah.
It's
a bargaining chip now.
Well, it is
a legitimate one.
Well, and that's why competition's good. It's great for fans.
For sure.
It's good for the actual business. I feel that WWE will become complacent because, you know what? They don't have to put their best stuff out. They don't have to work longer hours. They can work long hours, but not longer hours because there's no competition. I think this is great for those reasons. Plus, wrestlers get paid now. They get paid even more, which is, hey, I mean, I think we all agree that wrestlers maybe get a lot more benefits. I think that there's a lot more compensation opportunities there. They do get paid pretty well, but when you factor all the wear and tear that goes into it, I don't know. I'd say it's pretty arguable if it actually balances out.
That's a good point. Unless you're a superstar.
Yeah. No, speaking of AEW, so yeah, I feel like we're getting little nuggets every week here. It sounds like there's a TV deal, right? Like with TBS maybe?
It's starting to form, yeah. One of the Turner stations, it looks like.
Yeah, and well, so I've heard a couple different things. I've heard where, on one hand, where AEW would have to pay for the time, that they would actually have to, they would pay Turner to be on the channel itself. But then I've heard the other side of it is like, well, no, actually Turner is trying to get their streaming service off the ground because cable will die. Cable will die at some point. It'll just be streaming apps. We all know that.
Yeah.
I think that Turner is trying to get ahead of that, and they need things like AEW to be on a streaming service to direct traffic to. So
that's smart.
Yeah. So I've heard kind of two different stories, which I know it's kind of like, oh, great, thanks. That's really good investigative reporting there. I'm sort of just two opposites there, but yeah, that's kind of what I heard. But
so you think it's going to be on television as well as the streaming service, or just exclusive to the streaming service?
There's been a couple things. I actually heard at one point that Showtime was interested.
Oh, really?
In this as well. Yeah. So I think the idea is that it would be on TBS, but then it would also be like TBS would have their own streaming service
Go or whatever,
or probably Turner Go or something. You know, like something like that. So yeah, that's I think the idea that they're sort of working with. But AEW is set to officially debut on TV. Not officially. Sort of heard rumors about October, fourth quarter. So October is essentially when we will maybe see AEW on TV. So
Tuesday Night Dynamite coming soon.
Well, that's actually something that's interesting is that it sounds like because of the deal they have with NBA, that Tuesday night would not be an optimal night for them. So they'll probably end up getting more of like a Wednesday or a Thursday. Because I don't know if they want to go head-to-head quite yet with WB on Monday, Raw, and then, of course, Friday, which will ultimately be where Fox is.
Yeah.
And actually, it's interesting because I think around that same time in October is when SmackDown moves to Fox.
Oh, okay.
So I think that actually happens this year in October,
well,
if I'm not mistaken. So, but yeah, no. So we'll kind of see what where it goes with this. I know it's interesting because just being on the independent circuit, as far as a wrestling fan like myself, you go to these shows and you kind of see this progression. Like Kylie Ray, for example, wonderful worker, great charisma in the ring. Her and Jessica Havoc, they tore down the match at AAW, and I'm talking about All American Wrestling, AAW, not AEW. Yeah. AAW. They had a show here at Logan Square about a month or so ago. They tore the house down, but she dropped the title because again, Kylie Ray is signed to AEW. I'm actually going to see a match tonight. She is the main event, taking on Ethan Page. He's done some work with Impact. Great heel. He's a great worker, great heel. Really works the crowd. Reminds me a lot of Larry Sabisco. Larry Sabisco would really just work the crowd. Well, and I shouldn't put them on the same breath quite yet. I think Ethan Page, though, he could definitely have a classic career such as that. But and I guess the way I'm talking is that they work the crowd really well. Ethan Page will actually have conversations during a match with the crowd. Not the whole, go piss off Chicago.
Yeah.
Like he actually engages and will remember a certain person.
Oh, wow.
And so it's kind of cool in that way. But see, actually, it's going to be a great main event. You're going to have a super face face like Kylie Ray taking on a super heel like Ethan Page. But again, I almost have this theory that Kylie Ray is going to drop the title because she's with AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and she'll be starting there in about May or so when they roll out their second pay-per-view. So it's kind of one of those interesting things where you sort of see the change of the winds of change, so to speak. But no, I'm really looking forward to AEW. It sounds like they've got about 40 contracts. I saw an interview with Cody Rhodes, and it sounds like they've got about 40 different contracts so far. Last I heard, they were looking for a hoss. They're looking for a big guy. So Luke Harper, come on up.
yeah, Luke Harper. How about that? He never got to really spread his wings and show us what he could really, really do in WWE. Maybe this will be his chance.
You know, he had moments.
We saw glimpses. Yeah,
the
glimpses.
Intercontinental Champion, and he did, the NXT Tag Team Gold. Of course, and he had the SmackDown Gold with Eric Rowan. And yeah, no, and it was interesting because a lot of people had talked highly of him. Triple H added him to the Survivor Series match as kind of a replacement. I remember hearing an interview from John Cena at the time. This is some years ago, and they'd asked him, "Who do you think is the most underutilized wrestler on the rosters right now?" And he straight up said Luke Harper. So and again, I'm thinking John Cena's got some pull here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was weird. We never really saw much come from Luke Harper. But again, I don't think that's really any fault of his own. I think it might just be the way creative works, and just they stockpile a lot. WWE, especially now with competition, they stockpile a lot of talent, and it's great to have a lot of talent, but you got to be able to use it all. And there's a lot of people kind of hanging out in the wings, like Sanity, perfect example.
Yeah.
I would have at least had Sanity in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. There's no reason they shouldn't have been in that Battle Royal. They weren't. What else is going on this week, Josh?
I had an experience when I watched Raw the other day. A Viking experience.
Oh yeah.
War Raiders became the Viking experience, which which I find really funny on its face, but I also find it even funnier because that's like a real museum thing that you can go to. It's called the Viking experience, and you live like a Viking for a little bit or something.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's like a Renaissance fair for Vikings, I guess. I think it's in the UK somewhere.
Okay, I've heard of that. Yeah.
So I don't know. I understand that Vince probably didn't want a bunch of people in the audience shouting war because maybe sponsors would get upset, or how Vince is.
Well, Raw is war, right?
Raw is war, but still, I don't know. That's a guess that I think Simon Miller or somebody had thrown out, and I think it's fairly legitimate. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. But Viking experience, really, Vince? Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
It'll be cool. I think Sarah Logan's gonna join, right? We're sort of waiting for that.
Probably, but
shoot a drop.
But I'm just I'm not like they're great wrestlers. They're doing their thing, but good God, this gimmick, man.
Hey,
that's come on.
Well, let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot.
This Viking experience. Just call them the Vikings. Come on, guys. Or is that name taken?
I don't think there's been a Vikings.
There's been the Warlord, the Barbarian,
the Berserker.
Yeah. I don't think we've had Viking. Just change it to the Viking. I don't know. I can't get over the Viking experience. Like, I feel like these guys will never be taken seriously until they get a little bit better. You don't have to change the Viking gimmick. Just change the friggin' name.
It could be something where there might be like a trademark because people call it the Vikings. So maybe the Minnesota Vikings, NFL has something to say about that. Or maybe they just we're not going to deal with that.
Right.
We don't want that type of press. We're not going to deal with that legal. So they just decided to name it as
then
as
come
such.
Up with something. You could still do better than the Viking experience.
Nah, dude, I agree with you. But let's give it a shot. And hey, let's give it a shot. It's a good opportunity for some
I'll stand by the guys. Yeah. I'm not gonna poo-poo them just because of their name. But man,
I do think we're gonna see a disintegration of the Riot Squad, and I do think that we're gonna see Sarah Logan's gonna go to the Viking.
She seems like she's getting that push. She won the women's battle royal.
Yeah,
and can we talk about Asuka not winning the women's battle royal?
Oh yeah, well there's so much to talk about with WrestleMania, but yeah, it was weird because I was happy for Sarah Logan, but I'm like after the shaft that Asuka got in the past couple weeks.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I personally maybe would have just made it a fatal 4-way. I don't know, and still make it a winner takes all. But again, it was just I think that the decision was to bulk up the current main event they had and to throw Asuka in there.
It would have been a little too much, but at the same time, I just want Asuka to do things.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And Asuka, if she was in the fatal 4-way match, the way it would have worked is if she was still undefeated, or if she was only at a 1-loss record to Charlotte Flair at the previous WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. But then she lost to Carmella.
Yeah.
She lost to Mandy Rose. So the sort of mystique of Asuka is gone.
Yeah.
So I guess I kind of understand at that point. Then it's like, well, I don't know if you're not gonna make a fatal 4-way match. I guess I would have had her as far as have her own match and then maybe merge the titles after WrestleMania. But again, these are decisions that we sit here and we say they should do this, they should do that.
Right.
There's probably a million reasons of why they had to do what they did.
Damn it, I'm going to be an armchair booker.
Well, it's fun to do, right?
Right. It's fun to do. It's fun to imagine.
I think as long as we understand we are just that armchair bookers, then I think it's okay.
Right.
It's fun.
As long as you don't go to like the Hall of Fame ceremony and try and tackle somebody because you don't get your way with the booking.
Oh my gosh, what the heck? That guy just seemed like just a nut.
He was out there. Well, like anybody wearing, like some white guy wearing Rasta stuff.
Yeah.
He's making bad decisions.
Oh man, it was actually weird. It reminded me of when it was the Wyatts versus the Shield, and the Shield was coming out with the third guy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so the two are walking out, and this guy actually wearing like the Rasta stuff came out, and that was the first thing I thought of. I'm like, is that the same guy? And Bray Wyatt sold is like, oh, is that your third guy? And he's like laughing in the ring. I'm like, yeah, he sold it pretty well, but yeah, that was the first thing I thought of. But yeah, that stuff is just like that. That's so uncalled for. I'm glad to see what happened was security and wrestlers jumped in there to their aid. But at the end of the day, that's just like and I've said this a million times before. As a fan, when you buy a ticket, you can pretty much say whatever you want. You can be as loud as you want. You cannot put your hands on wrestlers or the workers. Now, it's one thing is, if like you pat them on the back, like, people sneak their hand through a guardrail and pat. That's one thing. But like, case in point, a couple of months ago, I was at an AAW show, All American Wrestling show here in Chicago, and Eddie Kingston came out. Eddie Kingston, one of the best talkers in the business, and like he does, is a good heel. He was trolling the audience. Well, there was one guy that got in his face, and this guy had it coming. He got in Mance Warner's face, another worker earlier in the evening. He got in his face. Now, Mance Warner kind of just blew it off, but this guy got in Eddie Kingston's face. Eddie Kingston was kind of selling it, was like, oh, your breath is really bad, blah, blah, blah. Well, the guy grabbed Eddie Kingston. That's a bad move. You should never touch a professional wrestler, and you should never, ever, ever touch Eddie Kingston. That is the worst person to start a fight with. I'm serious. Like, I couldn't believe. But anyway, that guy walked out like 2 feet taller. Eddie Kingston, I think got a few hits in, but he tore the guy's shirt, and the guy had to walk through the entire crowd dejected, shirt torn. Boy. And I'm like, that's what you get. That's what you get for putting your hands on someone like that. But no, again, seeing that stuff at the Hall of Fame was just absolutely horrible. Well, and it's something that I mean, obviously the guy had planned it. He saw an opening, as they say.
He was a troubled young man.
Well, and you can't. It's one of those things where it's like, well, we should have more security. Well, I think that they had security. I think people jumped in when they could. You can't plan for everything.
Considering what happened, like if somebody just wants to all of a sudden jump up and jump over something and run, honestly, unless you have someone standing right there, what are you supposed to do? I feel like they did the best that they could. You had wrestlers surrounding the place. Like how much more security do you need?
Right. Well, and that's the thing too. Is like even security in the crowd, they can't see everything.
Yeah.
There's usually, I don't know. I mean, probably a dozen security workers for I don't know, thousands of people. It's tough, and you're keeping your eyes on everything. There's so much going on.
People are walking around, jumping up and down.
Yeah.
All kinds of.
Yeah. So it's tough all around. So I don't think it's any blow to security, but
definitely not.
Again, it was one of those things where I think that it could have ended a lot worse, but it was the best it could have been for the situation that had occurred. But that said, WrestleMania. Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. When the show started off with Hulk Hogan, I basically said, well, shit, here we go.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is they tried to actually help out with having that main event, which I think was a good move to have Brock Lesnar, Seth Rollins kick off the show, especially if you're going to have Hulk Hogan there. Introduce, and by the way, he messed up.
Yeah,
he messed it up again.
What do you call it? MetLife Center?
Yeah. And so I was there WrestleMania 30 when he kept calling it the Silver Dome.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And my friends that were with me, they were like, what? I'm like, he just said the Silver Dome. And then The Rock called him out. You mean the Superdome?
Yeah,
that was awesome. But then he tried to make fun of himself at the start of this WrestleMania. Okay, haha, I'm with you. You're making fun of yourself. But then you messed up that. You messed up. Yeah, no, it was just like he even messed that up. So I don't know. But anyway, they started off with the main event match. I was fine with that, with Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins. I was glad that Rollins went over, but they messed it up because it didn't. To me, it's like Rollins does not deserve the title. The way that match was booked was Rollins was just basically squeaked by with the title. The way they booked that match, it just basically made Seth Rollins look really weak. What I wanted to see was him barely come through, squeak by, just on the skin of his teeth. And then the way you do that is you could have Brock Lesnar go for, I don't know, a stinger splash, hits the turnbuckle, it opens it up for Seth Rollins to hit a curb stomp. After 1, no, Brock Lesnar kicks out. After 2, no. 3, 4, 5, 7 curb stomps later, nothing. People are thinking, okay, they're doing a la Savage Ultimate Warrior here. So they get to 11 curb stomps. Brock Lesnar still kicks out. It gets to like 20 curb stomps, and finally Seth Rollins freaking wins.
That's a lot of curb stomps.
Well, but we're talking about Brock Lesnar here. He's been booked as a mythical.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
Yeah, exactly. So still actually put Brock Lesnar over. Someone kicks out of your finishing move 20 times, and Seth Rollins barely got through. That's the story we wanted to see. Instead, we got this low blow and a couple curb stomps, and I was like, okay.
It was all too quick, too easy.
Well, it's too quick, and it was the same issue I had with the Daniel Bryan Brock Lesnar match. It was actually a great match.
Yeah.
The Survivor Series, great match. The only one issue I had with it was that Daniel Bryan regained his strength way too quick. Like, he was getting his butt kicked, and then out of nowhere, he like pulled a Hulk Hogan, and I was like, that's just not his character. Again, it's one of those things where I think Finn Balor did it really well, where they it was sort of the abdomen went into the commentating table, and then Finn Balor sort of saw the opening there. With Daniel Bryan, like everything after that, once he regained his strength, that side of the story was great. It was just it happened too quickly.
Yeah,
and that's what I think. That's what I think happened here in the Seth Rollins Brock Lesnar match as well. But anyway, so I guess it was one of those things where they actually asked for it to be the first match, because I think Brock Lesnar did in fact actually have a meeting somewhere.
Oh,
but again, there's a million things that could have been happening. Right. It could be something simple like Brock Lesnar's like, hey, I just want to get home. I want to be in my bed tonight. Well, that's not, and why not? He's Brock Lesnar. He can do whatever he wants. So that could have been something like that. But yeah, well, I don't know. But it was cool. Hey, outside of that, it was cool to see Ryder and Hawkins pull a Hail Mary and get the tag team championships. That was cool.
Yeah, unexpected.
And there were some bright spots. We talked about this in our last podcast where, just to enjoy wrestling for what it is, enjoy WrestleMania for what it is. You can be that critic, but at the end of the day, like, enjoy WrestleMania for the pageantry it is, the showcase it is, the story it tells, the revolution it completes and begins. Enjoy it for that. And I definitely felt like there were some moments, but overall, there's just a lot of things. WrestleMania 35 left me really confused. I mean, there was no Undertaker. He shows up on Monday Night Raw, though, and it sounds like there's some type of contractual thing where, hey, Vince might have been like, you know what, I'm going to pull you off WrestleMania. All right, and this is the first time in almost 20 years, but I'm going to pull you off the WrestleMania card. Well, I thought he would show up somewhere in WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And when he didn't, I was shocked. I was actually shocked when he showed up on Monday Night Raw, because I'm like, why would you have him show up on Monday Night Raw but not WrestleMania?
Right.
Like, what? So, I don't know. I was kind of thrown off by that. But again, there's probably a reason for what they did. But it sounded like there was a lot of contractual things going on. I know they were kind of ticked off about the Undertaker's independent appearances.
Yeah.
I mean, he was booking $25,000 an hour.
He's earned it, I feel, man. Yeah.
Well, and I've heard that WWE, they've made some deal outside of that to basically engulf him and said, no, we're going to give you a better deal. Stay with us. Don't do that anymore. So, but I mean, that being said, he'll still honors his dates. There was sort of that. It was cool to see Cena and doing the Thugonomics, kind of go heel for albeit only a night.
That was cool. That was fun.
And of course, it was really great to see. It was great to see Kofi Kingston win. I think we all knew Kofi Kingston was going to win. He was overdue, but in itself, it was a great match. It was actually a really good match, and I would have argued maybe to have that as the main event.
Yeah, that was the highlight of the show.
But that being said, the triple threat, it went the way you wanted to, but it was kind of, again, it almost sort of left me like the opening main event where it was like,
finish?
Yeah, it was just like, it was a unique finish in that she won via pinfall, quote unquote.
Right.
Although it was controversial fashion, but it kind of left me thinking, does she deserve to be the champion? So it's like one of those where you almost would rather see the tap out of Charlotte, which is really to be expected.
Yeah.
Or to see an actual pinfall on Ronda Rousey. I don't think you're going to see Ronda Rousey tap out, and I don't think she would agree to it, nor should she in someone in her position.
Probably not. Yeah.
I understand you want to put over talent, but if you're Ronda Rousey in this situation, you do it via pinfalls, not submission.
Yeah, for sure, for real.
But yeah, no. That being said, I think those main events were good. It was, Finn Balor was great to see as the Demon King, but again, it was a match you knew that was going to happen. Overall, I felt it was kind of a predictable WrestleMania, save the fact that Undertaker wasn't there and John Cena showed up doing the Thugonomics.
Yeah, you didn't have too many big moments, Like, I mean, there were some good matches. Of course, the big moment of the women main eventing, but aside from that, like, you look back at past WrestleManias, Rusev came out on a tank, and this guy did this, and Shawn Michaels came down from the heavens. There's always like that one thing, and I don't know, Thugonomics Cena just isn't that one thing for me to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and when it's like a cumulative number, like 35, when it's definitive, like, okay, this is 35 years. It's just something nice saying those nice odd numbers, right?
Yeah. Is it just me, or did it kind of feel like a little bit of a budget WrestleMania? Like, am I the only one? Like, like the set was just a gigantic screen, which is cool in its own right, but there's no roller coaster. There's no, you know what I mean? Like this big thing. And then the ring posts weren't digital. They were old school ring posts, and the ring apron was old school.
Yeah. Well, I think we had, you brought up the theory where we think there might have been some technical issues.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Like the
if that
ramp,
was-
I don't think was working all night. I'm pretty sure
yeah,
the ramp
just
was supposed to work.
The
Yeah.
solid black ramp was probably supposed to be lit with a screen, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like they just couldn't do it. So I don't know. I think there might have been some things like where they wanted to do special effects, but a lot of it's weather permitting. But yeah, no, overall, it was one of those where it left me wanting more. And again, I was kind of confused by some of the decisions they made. I think I was even more blown away by how lackluster Monday Night Raw and really Tuesday Night SmackDown were after WrestleMania.
Really? Yeah.
They had an opportunity here. I thought, oh my gosh, a main event, winner takes all, Kofi Kingston versus Seth Rollins. This is going to be the greatest post WrestleMania ever on Raw, and it was like turned into a tag match.
Total bait and switch.
That was the worst bait and switch. Like we expect it. We as wrestling fans always expect it, but we don't expect it on pay-per-views or the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania.
Right.
Which it is. The Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania is basically it's sort of a light pay. It's basically a pay-per-view.
In a way, yeah, kind
of. That's where we see a majority of the turns. We see a majority of like the new revolution sort of setting up for the next year or so. We didn't get any of that.
Not really, no.
Well, and they had the superstar shake-up that occurred. That was like the one big announcement that we all expected. But yeah, no, again, it kind of left me wanting more. And kind of tying it back to the superstar shake-up. Again, I think that it'll be sort of nice to see the different wrestlers work with each other and whatnot. It'll be cool to see AJ Styles on Raw and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to creative. I think that's going to be great for a couple weeks, maybe a month or so. But unless you keep actually doing more creative things, making these storylines even more interesting, really treating the fans like we are the authority.
Yeah.
Because I get that WWE, they have to do what they have to do. And again, here I go as the armchair booker. Listen to us, listen to us.
Well,
we want what we want, but then there's things like you bring. You brought up the example like Mattel. They're kind of calling that's a huge thing. If in fact that I believe that rumor.
If it's the case, yeah.
If it in fact is the case, that's a huge deal. That actually is preventing a lot of evolution in wrestling.
Yeah.
Cash is king. We've always known that cash is king. But that's the thing. That being said, I think the fans dictate a lot. There's been a lot of wrestlers who have been put over because of the fans. You think of Zack Ryder, you think of Christian, especially Christian, who didn't really have a whole lot given to him. And boy, I mean, basically he was given chicken shit and he made chicken salad of that. No, I'm serious. Like he was not given much.
Yeah.
And he's a perfect example where you can take as much as you got and make it just something huge and make it your own. Like make it your show.
Right.
And so you see people like that and then just, hey, it works for them. So again, I think we as the fans, we do have a voice where at the end of the day, too, WB also has a voice and they have a voice they have to listen to. So those things hopefully meet in the middle and we have a good product. Hope is what we're aiming for. Yeah.
Hope springs eternal.
Yeah. What else? Josh, you got anything else for us today?
We're up to 33 subscribers, Josh.
That's right. Hey, we need more.
Get
your friends, get your family, get your coworkers.
Yeah.
Get everyone on.
Spread the word. If you like what we're doing, spread the word. We're trying to get 100 subs. So let's get some more stuff in the hot box. Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling at Gmail. Follow us on Facebook, Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling. Twitter, Josh and Josh TW. We're everywhere, man. We're on Instagram, Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling. Hit us up.
Yeah.
Subscribe. Tell your friends. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah. Take care, all.
Bye.